Some secrets are so heavy, they shape the entire architecture of your life. They become the foundation you build everything else upon, the weight you carry in your chest when you see certain faces across a crowded room, the reason you choose one path over another without ever admitting why. My name is Adrian, and for 15 years, I carried a secret that lived in the space between heartbeats, in stolen glances, in the ghost of a touch that lasted 3 seconds too long, in words we almost said but swallowed instead. The secret had a name, Luca. But before you judge, before you let your mind race to conclusions, let me tell you that Luca and I aren't blood relatives. We are cousins only by the loosest definition. His mother married my uncle when we were both 12 years old. Two boys thrust together by our parents' choices, expected to be brothers, becoming something else entirely. This is the story of what happened when I saw him again after a decade apart, standing in my mother's kitchen like a ghost made flesh, looking at me with eyes that remembered everything we'd never said. This is the story of us. The call came on a Tuesday. "Adrian, honey, I need you to come home this weekend." My mother's voice carried that particular tone that meant this wasn't a request. "Your Aunt Caroline is having surgery, nothing serious, but she'll need help during recovery. Luca's coming back from Seattle to take care of her." My hands tightened around my phone. Luca, that name still had power over me even after all these years. "I don't know if I can get away from work, Mom," I said, already knowing it was futile. "You have vacation days. Your aunt needs family right now. Besides," she paused, and I could hear the unspoken words hanging in the air. "It's been too long since you boys have seen each other." Boys, we were 32 now, grown men with careers and separate lives carefully constructed to never intersect. But to our families, we'd always be those boys who spent 5 years under the same roof, inseparable until we weren't. "I'll be there Friday," I said, surrendering to the inevitable. The drive from Portland to our hometown of Riverside took 4 hours, 4 hours to prepare myself, to build up the walls that had slowly crumbled over the years of distance. I'd thought about Luca less frequently as time passed. The sharp ache had dulled to a manageable throb, present only in quiet moments. When I smelled sandalwood, his preferred cologne, when I heard certain songs we'd listened to in his car, when I dated men with dark curly hair and warm brown eyes, always searching for echoes of something I'd lost. Or maybe something I'd never really had. The house looked exactly the same, a sprawling craftsman-style home with a wraparound porch, painted a soft sage green with white trim. My uncle had bought it when he married Caroline, big enough for their blended family. My mother lived just 2 blocks away, close enough to be part of every Sunday dinner, every holiday, every milestone. I parked on the street, taking a moment to breathe. Through the kitchen window, I could see movement. My mother, my aunt, and my breath caught. Luca stood at the counter, chopping vegetables, his back to the window. But I'd recognized that posture anywhere, the way his shoulders curved slightly forward when he concentrated, the absent-minded rhythm of his movements. He'd grown broader since I last saw him, filled out in the way men do in their 30s. His hair was shorter, more professional, but still that rich dark brown that looked black in certain light. "You going to sit in your car all day, or are you coming in?" I jumped, turning to see my mother standing by my window, a knowing smile on her face. How long had I been staring? "Just gathering my thoughts," I said, climbing out of the car. She pulled me into a hug, and I let myself sink into the familiar comfort of her embrace. My mother had always been my safe harbor, even when I couldn't tell her why I was drowning. "He's nervous too," she whispered in my ear. I pulled back, searching her face. "Mom, come on, everyone's waiting." The kitchen smelled like garlic and rosemary, warm and inviting. Aunt Caroline sat at the breakfast nook, her arm in a sling, smiling when she saw me. My Uncle Marcus was setting the table. And Luca. Luca turned around. Our eyes met, and the world contracted to just this moment, this breath, this recognition that shot through me like lightning finding ground. His eyes were the same, deep brown with flecks of gold, framed by thick lashes that had always seemed unfair on someone who identified as masculine. But there were new lines around them now, a maturity in his face that made him heartbreakingly handsome. "Adrian," he said, and my name in his voice was a time machine, transporting me back 15 years to late nights studying, to shared secrets, to the moment everything changed. "Luca," I forced myself to move forward, to accept the hug that protocol demanded. His arms came around me, and I caught that scent, sandalwood, yes, but also something uniquely him, something that bypassed my rational brain and went straight to the place where memories lived. The hug lasted exactly 3 seconds. We'd always been careful about that. "You look good," he said, stepping back, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Portland's treating you well." "Can't complain. Seattle seems to agree with you too." We were strangers, making small talk, and it hurt more than I'd expected. Dinner was a careful dance of family conversation, Aunt Caroline's surgery details, my mother's new garden, my uncle's retirement plans. Luca and I contributed when prompted, but mostly we existed in parallel, our awareness of each other a constant hum beneath the surface chatter. I learned he was working as an architect now, specializing in sustainable design. He learned I'd become a therapist, focusing on LGBTQ plus youth. That revelation earned a quick glance from him, something flickering in his expression before he looked away. "That's wonderful, Adrian," Aunt Caroline said warmly. "You always were so good at listening to people." After dinner, I helped clear the table while Luca loaded the dishwasher. We moved around each other with the practiced ease of people who'd once known every inch of shared space, who'd navigated narrow hallways and crowded kitchens for years. Muscle memory, I told myself, nothing more. "So," Luca said quietly, handing me a plate to rinse, "how long are you staying?" "Through the weekend, you." "I took 2 weeks off. Mom needs help while she recovers." 2 weeks, 2 weeks of this exquisite torture, this careful distance, this pretending that we were just cousins who'd drifted apart naturally rather than two people who'd torn themselves away from each other because the alternative was too dangerous. "That's good of you," I said. "She's my mom," he paused. "I'm glad you're here, even if it's just for a few days." I looked at him then, really looked, and found him already watching me. The moment stretched, heavy with everything we weren't saying. "Luca, Adrian, come join us for coffee," my mother called from the living room, breaking the spell. That night I lay in my old bedroom at my mother's house, staring at the ceiling. The glow-in-the-dark stars I'd stuck there at 14 were still faintly visible. Luca and I had put up matching constellations in his room 2 doors down, Orion in mine, the Big Dipper in his. We'd spent hours lying on our respective beds, talking through the wall using the Cupsand string phone we'd made as a joke, but ended up using seriously when we wanted privacy from our parents. I wondered if those stars were still glowing in his old room, if he ever thought about those nights. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but I knew before I opened it. "Are you awake?" My heart hammered against my ribs. I should ignore it. I should delete the message and his number and go to sleep. Instead, I typed, "Yeah." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "Can't sleep either. Too many memories in this house." "Tell me about it. I'm staring at the stars we put up." "Mine are still here too. Remember how we used to talk through the wall?" "Every night for 3 years." The texting was safer than talking, a buffer of technology between us and the weight of presence. But it was also dangerous because it was easy to be honest in the dark, with screens between us. "Adrian, can I ask you something?" I hesitated, my thumbs hovering over the keyboard. "Sure." "Do you ever think about that summer, the one before senior year?" And there it was, the thing we'd never spoken about in the 10 years since. The summer we'd been 17, when the world had tilted on its axis and nothing was the same after. Yes, I typed, because lying seemed impossible suddenly, all the time. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, me too. 2 words that changed everything and nothing at once. We should probably sleep, I sent. Big family breakfast tomorrow. Yeah, good night, Adrian. Good night, Luca. But I didn't sleep. I lay there, phone clutched in my hand, remembering. The summer before senior year had been unremarkable at first. Luca and I were 17, straddling that awkward space between childhood and adulthood. We'd been step-cousins for 5 years by then, long past the initial awkwardness of forced family bonding. We were genuinely friends, best friends, if I was honest. We spent that summer working at the local community pool, him as a lifeguard, me at the snack bar. Our shifts overlapped, and we'd drive home together in his beat-up Honda Civic, windows down, music loud, singing off-key to whatever was on the radio. I'd known I was gay since I was 14, but I'd told no one. This was 2007 in a small town. Things were changing, but not fast enough. I'd learned to hide, to perform the role of a normal teenage boy, to laugh at the right jokes even when they strung. Luca had girlfriends, pretty girls who'd smile at him in the hallways, who'd sit with us at lunch. I'd watch him with them and feel something dark and complicated twist in my chest, something I refused to examine too closely. The night everything changed was late July, humid and restless. Luca's parents had gone to a wedding in California. My mom was visiting her sister in Portland. We had the house to ourselves for the first time ever. We decided to have a movie night, an all-night horror marathon. We made popcorn, turned off all the lights, and settled onto the couch with our respective blankets. By the third movie, we'd migrated closer together without noticing. By the fourth, Luca had fallen asleep, his head tilted toward me, his breathing deep and even. I should have woken him up, sent him to bed. Instead, I let myself look at him, really look, in a way I'd never allowed myself when he was awake. The curve of his jaw, the dark fan of his lashes against his cheek, the slight part of his lips. He was beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. And then he'd shifted, unconsciously moving closer, his head coming to rest on my shoulder. I froze, every nerve in my body suddenly alert, aware of the warm weight of him against me, the scent of his shampoo, the trust implicit in his relaxed posture. I should have moved, I didn't. Instead, I stayed perfectly still, hardly breathing, memorizing the feel of this moment because I knew it could never happen again. Except then he woke up. His eyes opened slowly, confused at first, then focusing on where he was, pressed against me, my arm somehow around his shoulders. We stared at each other in the flickering light of the TV, neither moving. Sorry, he mumbled, starting to pull away. It's okay, I said, but my voice came out rough. He didn't pull away. Instead, he stayed there, his eyes searching my face in the darkness. Adrian. Yes. Can I? He swallowed hard. Can I tell you something? Something I've never told anyone. My heart was a drum, of course. I think I might be, he took a shaky breath. I think I might like guys, like not just as friends. The world stopped spinning. You what? I know it's weird. I know it's probably just confusion or whatever, but I can't stop thinking. He closed his eyes. There's this guy in my physics class, and I can't stop looking at him, and when I'm with Jess, I'm thinking about, fuck, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything. Luca, I caught his arm as he started to pull away. Luca, look at me. He did, and I saw fear there, and shame, and hope all tangled together. I'm gay, I said, the first time I'd ever said it out loud. I've known for years, and you're not confused. If you're feeling this way, it's real. His eyes widened. You're... Yeah. We stared at each other, and something shifted in the air between us. A recognition, a possibility we'd both been unconsciously avoiding. Adrian, he whispered, I think I might. And then he kissed me. It was clumsy and sweet and terrifying. My first kiss. His first kiss with a boy. Our lips barely touching, breath mingling, the whole world narrowed to this point of contact. When we broke apart, we were both shaking. We can't, I said, even as everything in me screamed to pull him back. We're cousins. We're not related, he said fiercely, not by blood. Our parents are married, we live in the same house, everyone thinks of us as family. But we're not really. His hand found mine in the darkness. Adrian, I think I've been feeling this for a while, I just didn't understand what it was. Me too, I admitted, the truth pulling itself free. But Luca, we can't. It would destroy our family. Your mom and my uncle just got married. If anyone found out. Then we don't let anyone find out. And just like that, we made the worst and best decision of our young lives. We decided to keep our secret. I woke up to sunlight streaming through my childhood curtains and the smell of my mother's famous cinnamon rolls. For a moment, I was 17 again, about to head downstairs to find Luca already at the kitchen table, his hair messy from sleep, smiling at me over the rim of his coffee mug. Then reality crashed back. I was 32, and Luca and I had barely spoken in a decade. My phone showed 3 new messages, all from him, sent in the early hours of the morning. I'm sorry for bringing up the past. I know we agreed not to talk about it. But being back here, seeing you again, it's like no time has passed at all. I don't expect anything, I just needed you to know that. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, trying to decide how to respond. The therapist in me knew all the reasons this was complicated, the family dynamics, the years of separation, the different lives we'd built. But the boy who'd fallen in love at 17 didn't care about any of that. Let's talk, meet me at Riverside Park at 10. His response came immediately, I'll be there. Riverside Park sat on the edge of town, a sprawling green space with a creek running through it. Luca and I had spent countless afternoons there during those 3 secret years, finding secluded spots where we could just be ourselves, away from the careful performance we maintained at home. He was already there when I arrived, sitting on our bench. Even after all this time, I thought of it that way, our bench. Hidden behind a cluster of willow trees overlooking the water, it had been our sanctuary. Hey, he said as I approached, and I was struck again by how his voice had deepened, matured, while still maintaining that particular cadence that was uniquely his. Hey, I sat down, leaving a careful foot of space between us. We need to talk about this, don't we? Yeah, he stared out at the water. I wasn't sure if you'd want to, but I can't pretend anymore, not after last night, not after seeing you again. I know, I took a breath. Can I ask you something first? Why did you really leave? 10 years ago, why did you cut off all contact? He was quiet for a long moment. You really don't know. You got into the architecture program in Seattle. Your mom was so proud. You left 2 weeks earlier than you needed to, and then you just stopped responding to my messages. Adrian, he turned to look at me, and there was pain in his eyes. I left because I was falling apart. We'd been keeping this secret for 3 years, sneaking around, lying to everyone we loved. We couldn't go to prom together, couldn't tell anyone why we broke up with our official partners, couldn't be seen together too much or people would wonder. And I was so in love with you it physically hurt. My breath caught, Luca. That last night before I left for college, you remember, we were in your car at the Overlook, and you said we should probably end things, that it would be easier with distance, that we could finally figure out who we were separately. And you were right, but God, Adrian, it nearly killed me. I did remember. I remembered holding him while he cried, feeling like I was tearing my own heart out, but knowing it was the right thing to do. We'd been 18 and 20, heading to different colleges, exhausted from 3 years of hiding. You agreed, I said softly. You said it made sense. Because it did. Logically, it made perfect sense. But loving you was never logical. He laughed bitterly. I left early because I couldn't stand another 2 weeks of pretending to be excited about leaving when all I wanted was to stay with you. I stopped responding because every time I saw your name on my phone, I wanted to drop everything and come back. I had to cut the cord completely, or I never would have been able to move forward. And did you move forward? He looked at me. Did you? I tried, I admitted. I dated. Some relationships lasted months, one lasted 2 years, but I could never, I struggled for the right words. I could never feel that same thing I felt with you, that certainty, that sense of home. Me neither. He reached out, hesitated, then let his hand rest on the bench between us. I told myself I was over you, that it was just first love, that everyone thinks their first love is special. I built a whole life in Seattle, good job, good friends, dated guys who were smart and funny and kind, but none of them were you. My hand moved almost of its own accord, covering his. The touch sent electricity through me, familiar and new all at once. "What are we doing, Luca?" I asked. "What is this?" "I don't know, but I know I'm tired of running from it. I'm tired of pretending that seeing you doesn't affect me, that I haven't thought about you almost every day for 10 years. He turned his hand over, lacing his fingers through mine. "We're adults now. We don't live in the same house. We're not dependent on our parents. Maybe we could actually figure this out. Our families might surprise us. My mom has been asking about you for years, wondering why we grew apart. Your mom too. They're not stupid, Adrian. I think they might have suspected something even back then. And if they didn't, if this causes problems, then we deal with it together." He squeezed my hand. "Unless you don't feel the same way anymore. If you've moved on, if this is just nostalgia for you, tell me now. I'll respect that. I'll go back to Seattle after Mom's recovery, and we can go back to our separate lives." I looked at our joined hands, then up at his face, at the hope and fear warring in his expression. And I realized that I'd been in a holding pattern for 10 years, always comparing everyone to a memory, never letting anyone get too close because they weren't him. "I never moved on," I said. "I just got better at living with the missing." His eyes closed, and when they opened again, they were bright with unshed tears. "So what do we do?" I took a shaky breath. "I think we start over, not as those scared teenagers, but as the people we are now. We take it slow, we're honest with each other, and eventually, when we're ready, we're honest with our families." "You really think we could do this? Have an actual relationship?" "I think we owe it to ourselves to try." I brought his hand to my lips, pressing a kiss to his knuckles. "I think I've been in love with you since I was 17, and I'm tired of fighting it." A smile broke across his face, that same brilliant smile I'd fallen for all those years ago. "I'm in love with you too, still, always." And then he was kissing me, and it was nothing like that first clumsy kiss when we were teenagers. This was deeper, sure, filled with years of longing and loss and hope. I kissed him back, pouring everything I couldn't say into the touch, and somewhere in the back of my mind, I registered that this was the first time we'd ever kissed in daylight, in public, without the fear of being caught. When we finally broke apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. "I want to do this right," he murmured. "Real dates, meeting each other's friends, building something real." "Me too." I pulled back slightly to look at him. "But we should probably tell our parents sooner rather than later. I don't want this to be another secret." He nodded. "Together. Together." We decided to tell them that evening, over Sunday dinner. The traditional family meal had been a constant in our lives. Every Sunday at 6, the whole family gathered around the large dining table, sharing food and stories from the week. I spent the afternoon alternating between calm and panic. Luca texted me steadily, keeping me grounded. "Breathe, whatever happens, we face it together." My mom is more open-minded than you think. She volunteers at the Pride Center in Seattle. Worst case scenario, they're surprised but come around eventually. Best case, they already knew. I'm nervous too, by the way, in case that helps. When I arrived at the house that evening, Luca met me at the door. He pulled me into a quick hug, whispering, "Ready?" "Not even a little bit. Let's do it anyway." Dinner started normally, passing dishes, catching up on the day, light banter. My mother had made pot roast, Aunt Caroline's favorite. The conversation flowed easily, and I found myself relaxing slightly until Luca caught my eye across the table and nodded slightly. "Now or never." "Mom, Marcus, Aunt Caroline," I said, my voice only shaking a little. "Luca and I need to tell you something." The table went quiet. My mother set down her fork, her expression unreadable. Aunt Caroline looked between us, curious. Marcus straightened in his chair. "Go ahead, son," my uncle said. I looked at Luca, and he reached across the table to take my hand. The gesture said everything. Luca and we're together, I said. Romantically, we have been on and off since we were 17. The silence that followed felt endless. Then my mother said, quietly, I knew. What? Luca and I said in unison. She smiled sadly. Not at first, maybe not even for sure, but I saw the way you looked at each other, the way you'd find excuses to be in the same room, the way you both seemed to break a little when Luca left for college. She reached over and squeezed my hand. I've been waiting for you to trust me enough to tell me. You knew. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. Why didn't you say anything? Because you needed to come to it in your own time, and I understand why you felt you had to hide it. You were so young, and the situation was complicated. She looked at Luca. I've missed you, sweetheart. Both of my boys have been gone too long. Aunt Caroline was crying, but she was smiling too. I thought it was something like that. Mothers know, we always know. She stood up and came around the table, pulling both of us into a hug. My sweet boys, you must have been so scared. Marcus was the only one who hadn't spoken. He sat there, his expression difficult to read, and my stomach clenched with anxiety. Marcus, Luca said softly, say something. My uncle cleared his throat. I'll admit it's not what I expected, but then nothing about blended families is quite what you expect. He looked at us both. You're not related by blood, you didn't grow up together from childhood, and you're both adults now living your own lives. He paused. I can't say I understand it completely, but I can see how much you care for each other. I saw it back then, and I see it now. So you're okay with it? I asked. I think okay is maybe a strong word right now, he said honestly. But I love you both, and I want you to be happy. That's what matters most. The rest, we'll figure out as we go. I felt tears burning behind my eyes. This had gone so much better than I dared to hope. There's something else, Luca said. We want to do this right this time. No hiding, no secrets, which means eventually telling extended family, friends. We know that might be uncomfortable for you all. Stop, my mother interrupted. We'll deal with whatever comes. This family has been through much harder things than two people falling in love. Even if people think it's weird, I asked. Then they can think whatever they want, Aunt Caroline said firmly. Love is love, and after watching you two dance around each other for 15 years, I'm just glad you finally figured it out. The relief was overwhelming. Luca and I looked at each other, and I saw my own emotions reflected in his face: joy, disbelief, gratitude. Thank you, I said, my voice breaking. All of you, you have no idea what this means. Oh, I think we do, my mother said warmly. Now sit down and finish your dinner. We have 15 years of catching up to do. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of conversation and questions and tears and laughter. Our parents wanted to know everything: how we'd gotten together, why we'd broken up, what had changed. We told them an edited version, leaving out some of the more painful details, focusing on the love that had endured despite everything. As the evening wound down and we were helping with dishes, my mother pulled me aside. Are you happy? She asked simply. I looked across the kitchen at Luca, who was laughing at something Aunt Caroline had said. His whole face lit up. Yeah, Mom, I really am. Good, she kissed my forehead like I was still a child. That's all I ever wanted for you. That night, Luca walked me to my car. The street was quiet, lit by old-fashioned lampposts that cast golden pools of light. That went better than expected, he said, leaning against my car door. Way better. I stepped closer, emboldened by the knowledge that we didn't have to hide anymore. I keep waiting to wake up and find out this is a dream. If it is, I hope we're having the same one. He cupped my face in his hands. Adrian Chen, will you go on a date with me tomorrow night? A real, public, actual date? I thought you'd never ask. I kissed him, slow and sweet, under the streetlight. When we pulled apart, he was smiling. I have 2 weeks here, and then I go back to Seattle. I know. Come with me. I blinked. What? Come back to Seattle with me. Not forever, just for a visit. Meet my friends, see where I live. We could have a week together without family hovering, figure out what this looks like in the real world. It was impulsive and probably not practical, but the thought of letting him leave again, of going back to separate lives even temporarily, made my chest ache. I'll need to check with my clients, reschedule some appointments. Is that a yes? I grinned. That's a yes. He kissed me again, deeper this time, and I felt the promise of it, of all the tomorrows we'd get to have now, of all the moments we wouldn't have to steal or hide. When I finally drove away, I could see him in my rearview mirror, standing under the streetlight, watching me go. But this time, it wasn't goodbye, it was see you tomorrow. All the difference in the world. Luca picked me up at 7, and I felt like a teenager again, nervous and excited and slightly terrified. I'd changed my shirt 3 times, finally settling on a dark blue button-down that my best friend had once told me made my eyes look incredible. You look amazing, Luca said when I opened the door, and the way he looked at me made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. So do you, and he did. Dark jeans, a fitted grey sweater, his hair slightly tousled, effortlessly handsome. He'd made reservations at a small Italian restaurant one town over, a place called Bella Not that had opened in the years since we'd both left. It was intimate without being overly romantic, the kind of place where we could talk without shouting over loud music or crowds. As we settled into our booth, Luca reached across the table and took my hand right there in public. The gesture was so simple, but it meant everything. I can't stop touching you, he admitted. I spent so many years not being able to do this. I know the feeling. I squeezed his hand. Tell me about Seattle, about your life there. He told me about his work, designing eco-friendly buildings, about the coffee shop near his apartment where he went every morning, about his friends, a close-knit group he'd met through an LGBTQ plus young professionals network. He pulled out his phone and showed me pictures. His apartment with its view of the Sound, the last project he'd completed, his group of friends at Pride. They're going to love you, he said. I've told them so much about you over the years. You have. I couldn't help it. Even when I was trying to move on, you were always there in the back of my mind. I'd see something and think, Adrian would love this, or I have to tell Adrian about this, before remembering that we weren't in each other's lives anymore. He paused. My best friend Jason finally asked me point blank if I was still in love with someone from my past. I couldn't lie to him. What did you tell him? The truth, that I'd been in love with my step-cousin, that we'd had to hide it, that I'd left to protect myself but never really gotten over it. He's the one who convinced me to come back for Mom's surgery, said maybe it was time to stop running. Remind me to thank Jason. You'll meet him next week, Luca grinned. He's already planning a welcome dinner for you. Fair warning, he'll probably interrogate you. He's protective. I can handle it. I told him about my own life in Portland, my practice, my small apartment in the Pearl District, my volunteer work at a center for LGBTQ plus youth. A lot of my clients are kids figuring out their identity, being able to tell them it gets better, that they can build lives where they get to be themselves. It matters to me. Because no one was there to tell us that. Exactly, I looked down at our joined hands. We figured it out, but it was hard, harder than it should have been. Our food arrived, spaghetti carbonara for him, chicken piccata for me, and we fell into an easy rhythm of eating and talking, the conversation flowing naturally. We talked about everything and nothing, movies we'd seen, books we'd read, places we wanted to travel. We talked about our families, about the relief of not having to hide anymore. I called my dad today, Luca said. My biological dad, I mean. I knew Luca's birth father lived in Florida, that he'd left when Luca was 8. They had a cordial but distant relationship, speaking a few times a year. How did that go? Better than I expected. I told him I was seeing someone, that it was serious. He asked if you made me happy. Luca smiled. I said yes, and he said that's all that mattered. Then he asked when he'd get to meet you. Really? Really, I think he's trying in his own way. It's not perfect, but it's something. Luca played with his water glass. I'm realizing how much time I wasted being afraid of what people would think. Our parents surprised us. My dad surprised me. Maybe most people will surprise us too. And the ones who don't. Fuck 'em, he said simply, and we both laughed. After dinner, we drove to the Overlook, the same spot where we'd had our last conversation before he left for college. The view was the same, the lights of Riverside spreading out below us, but everything else was different. We sat on the hood of his car, his arm around my shoulders, my head resting against him. I used to come here sometimes, Luca admitted. When I'd visit my mom, I'd sit here and remember us, remember how young we were, how scared, and I'd wonder if you ever thought about me. All the time, I said. I drove up here once, about 5 years ago. I was visiting for Christmas, and I couldn't sleep. I came up here and just sat in my car remembering. We wasted so much time. Maybe we needed that time to become who we are now. We were kids, Luca. We're not anymore. He tilted my chin up, looking into my eyes. I love who you've become, this confident, compassionate, beautiful man. I love that you help kids find themselves. I love that you still bite your lip when you're thinking. I love that you still laugh at my terrible jokes. You haven't made any terrible jokes tonight. Why did the bicycle fall over? He asked, deadpan. I groaned, don't. Because it was too tired. I laughed despite myself. That was horrible. You're smiling though. I can't help it. I kissed him, tasting wine and happiness. I love you. I think I've loved you since we were 17, and you kissed me during that stupid horror movie marathon. I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes. Good scared or bad scared? Good scared, the kind that means it matters, that it's real. We stayed there for hours, talking and kissing and dreaming about the future. We talked about the practicalities. The distance between Portland and Seattle was manageable, just 3 hours by car or a short flight. We could alternate weekends, meet in the middle sometimes. Eventually, maybe one of us could relocate, but that was a conversation for later. I don't want to rush this, Luca said. We waited 15 years. We can take our time now. Agreed, but Luca, I turned to face him. I'm in this, all the way, I want you to know that. I'm in this too, for real this time, no hiding, no running. The week that followed felt like a dream. Luca and I spent every possible moment together, making up for lost time. We went on more dates, to the movies, to the local farmer's market, on hikes through the trails we'd explored as teenagers. We held hands in public, kissed goodbye in parking lots, existed as a couple in the bright light of day. Our families embraced it wholeheartedly. My mother invited Luca to lunch, just the two of them, and whatever they talked about left him smiling and her with suspiciously bright eyes. Aunt Caroline showed us old photos from when we were teenagers, pointing out all the moments she'd wondered about, the way we stood just a little too close, the way our eyes always seemed to find each other. I thought you'd figure it out eventually, she said, laughing. I just didn't realize it would take 15 years. On Thursday, we drove to Portland so Luca could see my life there. I showed him my office, introduced him to my colleague and close friend Sarah, who hugged him and whispered, finally, in my ear. We went to my favorite bookstore, a small independent place in Hawthorne. Luca immediately gravitated to the architecture section while I browsed fiction, and when I looked over, he was reading with that concentrated expression I'd always found endearing, completely absorbed. Find something good, I asked, coming up beside him. He held up a book on sustainable urban design, birthday present for myself. Your birthday's not until November. Early birthday present then, he grinned. Besides, this way I have an excuse to come back to Portland sooner. I'll need to return the bookmark you're about to buy me. I laughed, smooth. We had dinner at a Thai restaurant I loved, walked along the waterfront as the sun set, ended up back at my apartment. It was smaller than his, a one-bedroom with exposed brick and old hardwood floors, but it was mine, carefully curated to reflect who I'd become. Luca examined everything, the bookshelves crammed with psychology texts and novels, the photos on the walls, the plants I somehow managed to keep alive. He stopped in front of a framed picture on my desk, The two of us at 17, arms slung around each other's shoulders, grinning at the camera. You kept this? His voice was thick with emotion. Of course I did. It's one of my favorite pictures. He picked up the frame, studying it. We look so young. We were young, Barbies, really. I came up behind him, wrapping my arms around his waist. But we were also in love, even if we didn't fully understand what that meant yet. He turned in my arms, kissing me deeply. The kiss turned heated, urgent, and we stumbled toward my bedroom, a tangle of limbs and breathless laughter. We made love that night, slow and tender and real, taking our time to rediscover each other. It was different from those frantic, stolen moments of our teenage years. There was no rush, no fear of being caught. We could be loud, could take hours, could fall asleep tangled together afterward without worry. I could get used to this, Luca murmured against my shoulder, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on my chest. You'd better, you're stuck with me now. Good. In the morning, I woke to find him already awake, propped up on one elbow, watching me. Creeper, I mumbled, still half asleep. Can't help it. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and you'll be gone, that this is all too good to be true. I pulled him down for a kiss. I'm real, this is real. I know he took a breath. I don't want to go back to Seattle without you. I know we said we'd take it slow, but Adrian, I don't want to be apart from you anymore, not even for a few weeks. Then come to Seattle with me on Monday, like we planned. We'll have a week together, see how it feels, and then we figure out the next step. Promise. Promise. Sunday morning, we packed my bags for Seattle. My mother insisted on making us a big breakfast first, and we gathered around her kitchen table one last time, the whole family together. I want to make a toast, Aunt Caroline said, raising her orange juice glass. To Luca and Adrian for finding their way back to each other, and to family, which means loving each other through everything, even when it's complicated. To family, we all echoed. After breakfast, as Luca and I were loading my car, Marcus pulled me aside. Take care of my son, he said quietly. I know he can take care of himself, but still, he's been lonely for a long time. I see the difference in him since you came back. I will, I promised. And Marcus, thank you for accepting this, for being okay with it. You're my nephew, Adrian. That doesn't change, no matter who you love. Now go on, get out of here before Caroline starts crying again. The drive to Seattle was filled with music and laughter and the comfortable silences of people who didn't need to fill every moment with words. We stopped halfway for lunch, and as we sat in a roadside diner, Luca reached across the table and took my hand. Thank you for giving us another chance, he said. Thank you for coming back. I squeezed his hand, for being brave enough to start this conversation. We're really doing this, aren't we? Long distance, family dinners, meeting each other's friends, the whole thing. We really are. I'm terrified. Me too, but I think that's okay. The best things in life are usually a little scary. His apartment in Capitol Hill was everything I'd imagined from his photos, modern but warm, full of light, with architectural drawings pinned to the walls and plants on every surface. The view from his balcony looked out over the city, Space Needle visible in the distance. Home sweet home, he said, setting my bag down. What do you think? I think it's perfect. I think you're perfect. I think we're going to figure this out. That week in Seattle was magic. I met his friends, who welcomed me with open arms and embarrassing stories about Luca. We explored the city together, Pike Place Market and the waterfront and hidden coffee shops. We cooked dinner in his kitchen, went to a queer book reading at a local bookstore, spent lazy mornings in bed planning our next visits. On my last night, we sat on his balcony, wrapped in blankets against the cool evening air. I don't want you to leave tomorrow, Luca said. I know, but it's only 3 weeks until I come back, and then you're coming to Portland for Thanksgiving. And then Christmas here, and then we keep doing this until it doesn't make sense to live apart anymore. I turned to look at him, because that's where this is going, right? Eventually, one of us relocates. Is that what you want? I want to be with you. The geography is just details. I paused. My lease is up in March. I've been thinking about it, and I could probably build a practice in Seattle or do teletherapy. There are options. His eyes widened. You'd move here for me. For us, but only if you want that. I don't want to rush. He kissed me, cutting off my words. When he pulled back, he was grinning. Yes, God, yes, move here, move in with me. Let's build a life together for real this time. March is 4 months away. That's not too fast. Adrian, we've known each other for 20 years. We've been in love for 15. I think we've waited long enough, don't you? And just like that, the future clicked into place. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and solid and ours. Okay, I said, let's do it. Let's build something together. The wedding was small, just close friends and family, in the garden behind Lucas, our house. We'd moved in together in March, just as planned, and 6 months later, when marriage equality had been the law of the land for years, but still felt like a miracle, we decided to make it official. I stood at the makeshift altar, watching Luca walk down the aisle with both his parents, Caroline on one side, Marcus on the other. My mother was already crying in the front row, and I felt my own eyes getting misty. We'd written our own vows. When it was my turn, I looked into Luca's eyes and said, 15 years ago, I fell in love with my best friend. We were just kids, and we didn't know how to be together, so we learned. In secret, in stolen moments, in the space between what we could say and what we felt. And then we had to learn how to be apart, which was harder. But everything we went through brought us here, to this moment, to this life we've built together. You are my home, Luca. You always have been. And I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure you know that. Luca was crying by the time I finished. When it was his turn, he took a shaky breath and said, Adrian, you've been my secret, my best friend, my first love, and my last love. You're the person I think about first thing in the morning and the last person I want to see before I sleep. When I came back to Riverside last year, I thought maybe we'd find closure. Instead, we found our beginning. And I know it wasn't easy, blending our lives, dealing with family questions, figuring out logistics. But every hard day was worth it because I got to face it with you. You are the best decision I ever made, and I promise to choose you every day for the rest of our lives. When the officiant pronounced us married, our families erupted in cheers. We kissed, and it tasted like joy and salt from happy tears and the promise of all our tomorrows. At the reception, as we danced to our first song as husbands, Luca whispered in my ear, "Can you believe we almost missed this? Almost let fear keep us apart." "But we didn't," I whispered back. "We found our way back." "We found our way forward," he corrected, and he was right. This wasn't about going back to what we were. It was about becoming what we were always meant to be, two people who loved each other, finally free to do so without shame or secrecy. As the night wore on, I looked around at our gathered loved ones, my mother dancing with Marcus, Aunt Caroline laughing with my colleagues, Luca's Seattle friends mingling with my Portland friends. Two lives woven together, creating something new and beautiful. Luca came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How lucky I am, how lucky we are." I turned to face him, "and how I can't wait to see what comes next." "Me neither, husband." Husband, the word sent a thrill through me. "I love you," I said, for the 1,000th time that day. For the 10,000th time since we'd reconnected. "I love you too, always have, always will." And as we kissed under the string lights in our garden, surrounded by love and laughter and the family that had chosen to support us, I realized that this messy, complicated, beautiful love was worth every moment of waiting, every tear, every fear. Some secrets are too heavy to carry forever, but when you finally set them down, when you step into the light and claim your truth, you discover that love has been waiting there all along. Our love had waited 15 years. But now we had the rest of our lives. And it was going to be extraordinary.